your personal circumstances are probably not as big of a barrier as what you think. In the end, if you're able to provide a safe, welcoming, nurturing home for them, then they can provide the support that's needed to enable for that placement to be successful. Almost always surprised that I am doing the caring role. Yeah, they must think I'm a friend or a worker or something like that. When I talk about being a carer, they're like, oh, because I'm also full-time single person renting. I basically debunk every myth that people have, because I've never been sure I want my own children. But when I was a bit younger, I was like, I'll have kids and then I will have do foster or adoption or something like that. And then when I was in my mid-20s and became single and things, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know what that looks like. But I always just had this urge that I wanted to still do something around children. And then I started to ask some questions around what fostering would look like, because I didn't think I could as a single person. The more I learned about it, the more I realised how possible it was. I guess initially I was surprised on how long it took, but then as you go through it, you're like, oh, this is a good thing that it takes so long. So it was about 6 months, and I feel like I moved through it relatively quickly because it wasn't kinship or there wasn't anything set up for me. So it was just that standard process. I was also really impressed with the training and the support. I kind of figured that I would get assessed and then the support would come later, but you actually do the shared lives training before you're actually then assessed, and then you get the accreditation after that. Yeah, surprised in how much information and support you got before you even were a carer, which is a nice surprise. If I've ever said I want to learn more about something, or they just say, hey, there's this training available and that I can jump onto that, that's always been really good and really timely. And I think I've been relatively lucky in the way of the people who I've been able to connect with Life Without Barriers. I've been able to maintain relationships with most of the case workers that I've had. In the beginning, I kind of just jumped head first and thought it'll be right kind of attitude. And I still do that to a degree. I'll get presented a de-identified profile. I'll have a read of it. There's very rarely I've said no to any, but I've gotten better at advocating for what I'm going to need to be successful in placement. So that's probably one thing I do better at now in terms of preparing for it, to have a look at what my weeks look like. Do I actually have capacity to take on the child for that time and how long? And, whereas before I probably would have prioritised them first without considering what my needs were. And I'll just make sure, if they are coming for a weekend stay for a couple of nights or something like that, that I just will plan for nothing after, just so that we've got some flex, on a Sunday afternoon or something, just so they've got flexibility of when they leave, but also I've got downtime just to rest and recover and restore. Because especially when they're coming for a weekend, I'm kind of on, you're 100% available for them. They're your priority, and you give a lot of yourself in that time, which I love to do. But then I'm kind of I need to rest now. It kind of depends on the kid and their interests, their needs, what age they are, because that will mean that I might put away some of the younger stuff if they're an older child. I think I've brought about 10 different sets of LED lights, because the child that comes in will want it, and then they'll take them with them, which is totally fine, obviously. And if the kid's staying with me for a little bit or they're going to come back, we kind of gather things that they might like as the longer time they stay here. Try not to do too much, because I learned in the beginning when I prepared too much, I wanted it all to go perfect, and would then get a bit oh, they didn't like that, or they didn't engage with that, or they didn't do that. So I just try and find out what they like and have a couple of those things, and then build it as the longer they stay. It's do you know what, again, it's nothing, these big massive moments, it's the little things that happen. I had my first placement was the longest. He was only supposed to stay for 6 months, and he ended up staying for 10, and it was a tough placement for sure, but it was the little moments that we had together. I remember we were sitting at this table, and there was some challenges around food, and there was a moment where he learnt either how to eat with his hands, so it wasn't getting scrunched up and pushed around, or he was using a fork and then he just put his hand on my knee when we were eating breakfast. And it was an early riser, so it was 5:30 in the morning, and he's touching his hand on my knee, and I was like, ah. The affection never really came until after a few months of being here. And that's probably one of my favourite moments, I would say. One more recently was I've got a 14-year-old who comes back once a month and stays, and she's, as every 14-year-old, they're on their phone a lot and talking, And just the other week she was here, it was Saturday night, I'm sitting and I'm doing embroidery, like probably the most boring thing a 14-year-old could think about. And she's on the phone, but she chose to come downstairs, still on the phone and whatnot, but then just put herself on mute, sat there, and she's like, can I have a go? And so we were sitting there doing embroidery together, and she's the coolest cat there is. Like, these little moments of connection, I think, is probably, what makes you keep going back, you know. I have cared for kids with disabilities and all various care needs. Of course, adds its challenges, but again, like those little moments that I was talking about before, you can really celebrate and relish on the change that you can have in creating that environment for the child and meeting those needs. Because I have that tendency to jump in and say it will be right, it meant that there was some times that I was ill-prepared. Like, I just thought I'd be able to turn around every kid and every kid would be great. One of the hardest times was when it wasn't a good fit. I only can say that now in reflection. Like, I thought I was doing something wrong because the placement wasn't going well, but in reflection, it wasn't a good fit. This little young boy was used to a really busy house, and he had like 5 siblings or something like that, and he's come to this quiet house with one person who worked full time and, you know, had workers a lot and things. So yeah, having to accept that a placement wasn't working is probably one of my biggest challenges. Probably the main question I always get asked is, how do you let go of a kid? Like, people say to me, I'll get too attached, and I definitely do, but you know why a placement ends, whether it's for your needs or their needs, or they're looking for a longer placement or something like that. There's always a reason why a placement ends. And so you do, without being desensitized, you do learn to accept that they need to move on for whatever reason that is. But I think I'm still working on not being too critical when a placement isn't going well. Emergency is when they give you little to no notice, and someone needs, or a child needs, somewhere to stay for as short as a night, as long as whatever it turns into, but you get a choice as to how long that is. Whereas respite is more planned. Sometimes they can still come with a day or two notice, but the time is very clear from taking them on board, and the various lengths of that depends on the child's needs and the placement needs. Yeah, you can sometimes do that regularly, so you can plan it out and you know when the child is coming, or it might only happen as a once-off occasion. And then short-term is for a designated spent amount of time, and sometimes that is, again, varies in length, but can be up to about 6 months. Another myth is the amount of support that you can get as a carer for a placement to be able to be successful. If I say things like they have to be at school, then I can still ask for support workers to be able to take them to and from school. But I was surprised on how much I could do, even to the extent of the length of time that the child could stay with me, or I think also the amount of say I can have in a placement. There is very few barriers for you to be able to be a carer, and yeah, you might be surprised on what you can do. So my biggest thing is to ask questions so you can find out more and see if it's right for you. Sure, like, be prepared, but don't have expectations. Like, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to say the wrong thing, but just know that if you are there with those good intentions and try and actually apply the things that they say in training, like prepare parenting and PACE model and all of that kind of stuff, because it works. And so give yourself that permission to have some reminders up in the house or have the books out, and refer back to them, because yeah, as a new carer, you get all this information in the beginning and it's hard to put it all into practice once you get those first placements, but the information is there. Just give yourself that permission to go slowly, review it, look through it, and then, like I said before, ask the questions. Like, I called after hours all the time when I first started, going, what about this situation's happened, what should I do there? Just for reassurance, even if you think you know but you're not sure. And again, that was really important for me because I was doing this on my own. If you're in a partnership of any kind, make sure that you're supporting each other to be successful, and if you're not sure, then yeah, reach out to your agency's supports. But Life Without Barriers. As a care ambassador, I guess I am trying to get the word out there to debunk some of these myths and stuff like that. Just talk to everyday people. Most of the time I'm doing that through events. If you see a Life Without Barriers stall, you can come up and talk to us. I think the difference is that I'm not a worker. Like, I'm not there as a staff member. I'm there as a carer first, and so that I can talk about real life experiences, what my experience was with the support and the training and things like that.